Hi everyone, I'm Barbara from Fairies in My Pond, and for all of you that are following me with this ball jointed doll, I have cooked her head, and I have a couple of things on her that I wanted to point out, and I wanted to show you that I have this little dark spot, and that actually came from my oven. Now, this is something that I do want to point out, is that it's very important that your oven is clean when you are baking your raw clay. I have 3 ovens, and one oven is with baking soda. Then I have another oven that I don't have anything in it, no baking soda or anything like that. Then I have another oven that I use, and that is like if I'm going to dry flowers, it can get more dust and dirt in it. Okay, now evidently I had something in my oven and it really went inside of that clay, so I'm going to have to kind of like dig that out a little bit. But everything else really turned out very well. Now the wax is all melted out, and what I'm going to need to do now is I need to cut the top of her head. Now I'm really thinking about this because I want to do something a little bit different with the top of her head, because sometimes you can cut that into the raw clay. I didn't want to this time. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my drill to cut it out, and I'm hoping that it's going to turn out the way that I want, because I want to make some sort of a lock that the top piece connected to the head. Okay, let's bypass that. Here's the other thing that I wanted to point out with you. After I take it out of my oven and the wax is all melted and everything, sometimes I'll have a little bit of wax on the side, but it's no big problem. But what I like to do is I like to get a container and I put warm water in it. And usually I put it in pretty warm, and then by the time I get ready to sand, it's cooled down. But here, this is just an option, but I've always done this, and I take just a little bit of a moisturizing soap, and I like to put this in my water. And what it does is it gives me a little oily base to work with. So I'm going to take my very fine sandpaper, and she is pretty smooth, so I'm not going to have to use a much coarser sandpaper. I'm going to be able to just go right over it with the fine. And I will go all over, and I will pay attention as I'm sanding with her features. So in other words, I don't want to go around the lips and really sand really hard and take down the detail, but I am sanding it. And I also like to go inside of the mouth as much as I can and take that sandpaper, and I'm very lightly sanding it. Okay, now here's another thing I wanted to point out too, is that a lot of people, at least I've run into it with classes, is that people don't realize it, that when you have paper towels laying around that you're using, people will have a paper towel that has maybe a little bit of print on it, and they think that that's not going to matter. Well, I'm going to show you, but I'm not going to do it to my doll. But I'm going to show you how much print that is on this paper towel that I will not be using, and I have a towel here that I will be using. Let's say this paper towel right here with just that little bit of a print. If I get this head anywhere near this print, I will guarantee you that some of this dye is going to get onto my head. And that is going to mean I am going to have to sand it or take acetone to it. It is not that easy to get off. Now, I had a student that she brought some paper towels, and I always have all the stuff here. And she pulled out one of her paper towels, and she didn't even notice it until she was almost pretty much done sanding, and she said, why is my head changed colors? And when we looked at it, it is so faint, but the dye from the paper towel did just enough of a color to change it. So we had to take acetone to get that off, which all of you that are following me, you know that I don't like to use acetone, and I do use it only when I really have to. Now I'm just kind of taking my soap and I'm just working it into my cooked clay. Now some of you might think, well, you know, I don't do all that. Well, I do these things, these kind of things, because I have worked with this for so long that when I take my time and I really put a lot of myself into it, by putting this kind of soap in the water and working my soap with the moisturizer into the polymer clay, I can see and I can feel that there is a tremendous difference than if I were just to take the clay and put it in the oven and cook it. Put acetone on it or sand it or whatever. Just by me taking that little bit of an extra effort of doing this with the soap, it's going to moisturize oils, and I want that in my polymer clay. Now this tutorial is going to be about the sanding, and then what I'm going to do is the next step will be I'm going to think out the headpiece, and then I will have to do the opening for the neck. But here's what I wanted to show you was the sanding, what to pay attention to, and what I use. But just remember, if you choose to do the sanding like this, just pay attention that you're not taking detail off of her face or your doll's face. Okay, let's go ahead, and I'm going to wipe this off with my towel. Let me get my hands too. And don't be in a big hurry, because I'm really serious. When you take your time and you really think things out, really spend time with your clay and get to know it, you'll really enjoy it. And then what I do is I'm taking my towel and I am putting some force on that, on her face. And it's kind of like buffing it. So that when I paint her, that I want that paint to go on so smooth. And then of course I'll be doing the wax over her face too. Okay, let's take a look at it. And see, I'm gonna still do some more sanding, like, you know, like in her ears and that. And then I want to sand this down too. Yeah, she's turning out really good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish doing some more sanding, and then I'm going to think out the top of her head. Okay everyone, I have gone ahead and I've taken the top piece off, which I'm looking at this and I didn't like the way that it cut. So I'm thinking I'm going to actually make a mold from the top piece, and I'm going to do a whole new piece all over. Now here's the inside of the head. That the wax came out very nicely. Now this right here would be an area that I would want to round up. Okay, now here's what I would do is I'm going to go in here, and what I want to do is I want to make that ledge here real smooth. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'll actually sand this down some more right in here, because I still have to drill out my eyes. But I'm not going to drill out the eyes until I get this piece all nice and smooth and I get my top piece back on, because I want to see if I can make those little, something to kind of make a connection between the two. But I wanted to show you that, and I'm going to make this video short, and I'm just going to keep going with this, and you're going to follow me as I go along. So some of the videos may be short and some may be long, but that is how I do sand my dolls, and I really do. I'll take the soap, even sometimes like this, and I just put it on there. And I'll probably use a little rougher sandpaper with this. And I almost have that little spot out too, but I don't want to sand it too much, because it's, you know, you're taking away, you're making a little dip in it. But I have no clue to what that is. Then what I do is when I take the sandpaper, I want to round those edges. Now actually, I normally do this. I realized it after I cooked it and everything that I didn't do it, but this is a great opportunity to do it. Before you cook your clay, I will always take my tool, and right on the back of the neck I would put my signature right there. Now, some people write it in there. I like to more or less scratch it into the raw clay. Okay, I have a lot of work here to do tonight, and I just wanted you to see what I'm doing. And as soon as I get this, then I'm going to show you the drilling out the eyes, and then I'll be putting the eyes in. So I'll see you in my next one, everyone.